Idea, I'm going to pass this around just so
All right, so we're live now. So I will call to order the May 28th, 2025 regular board meeting pursuant to Idaho Code sections 33506 and 33510. Can the clerk determine if a quorum is present, please?
There are 3 trustees in attendance and a quorum is present.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the approval of the agenda. We have no additions or changes. Good?
Yep.
Okay. Moving on to approval of the minutes.
I move that the Board of Trustees of Moscow School District Number 281 hereby approves the minutes for the regular board meeting April 23rd, 2025.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Moving on to good news announcements and presentations. So real quick, good news. The big good news is the girls track and field state champions. So that's the biggie. Any other good news?
Yeah, I have an item. My husband and I were doing our twice yearly litter pickup, and I noticed that the high school National Honor Society also does that, and they had 13 people out there Saturday picking up trash.
And I don't want to steal Principal Summers' thunder, but I'm really excited that Moscow Middle School teacher Tiffany Bird won the Idaho Humanities Council's Outstanding Educator Award for the middle school. The middle school section, and that was a statewide award, and I'm excited that there will be a presentation of that in the fall.
Yes. Yeah,
Great.
congratulations.
Okay, that it? All right, so we move on to presentations, starting with the middle school math department.
Just a great chance to share some good news as well. I invited the middle school math department about a week ago, so it was kind of spontaneous. From the State Department, we had some visitors to come up. They were touring around the region and wanting to talk with math departments. And last year, the Moscow Middle School Math Department made some huge strides in our ISAT testing and growth, so much that I almost, like, in my own kind of skeptical mind was like, maybe this is just like an anomaly or something like that. But I got to attend the meeting last week and watch, and I've been eyeing ISAT scores throughout the spring like every superintendent does. And this program is really a gem for us as a school district. These teachers have done outstanding, and we are in all areas, Moscow exceeds state averages, but they are really bucking a state and nationwide trend in math performance at the middle school level. And they're going to share, I think, with you some exciting news and some challenges that they have, and some, kind of like, scratch your head, and just kind of as they continue to work to understand their program. But they are doing really, really great work, and I'm excited to have them present. So I will get your guys' board presentation up.
While you're doing that, I'd just like to introduce ourselves. I'm Derek Sanders.
Please step up to where the podium is, that way you're on camera.
I'm Derek Sanders. I'm the math department head, democratically elected. That's kind of forced. We got 4 of us. We're missing one who lives in Washington. But we got Chase Lambert, Rachel Alo, and Nina Satsko with us, and we teach everything from 6th grade to 8th grade, and then the advanced courses. So we've got representation on all of our courses here.
This is Chase Lanham. Chase Lambert is an 8th grader at high school.
Who I've taught for 2 years now, and that's why it's getting all mixed up. I'm sorry. All right, but yeah, we're talking about math and our math lab here at the middle school. So, pass it over.
Okay, so I love nothing more than longitudinal graph.
Podium,
Do I have to really go over here? Because I
Gotta be
I
on
wanna touch
camera,
my
yes.
graph, but I want to touch my graph. So this is a longitudinal look of all of our ISAT data going back to 2019, so we could look at that pre-pandemic. And then the different classes from 23 up through our current 6th graders who are 31. So the thing that caught our attention in 2021, can I walk over here where you guys be mad, was this. We had that dip, and that is something that at that time the state was seeing that 7th to 8th grade dip. They, of course, were not in school at the end of 2020, and they were hybrid that year. So everybody saw kind of a big dip. And when we saw that, we were like, ooh. And we started working and working and working and working. And one of the things that we did is we were in the middle of the curriculum adoption, and so we looked at illustrative math. And we adopted that in the 21-22 year. And then with that, and Chase will talk about that in a second, there were some necessary changes to make that program work. And so in the 23-24 school year, all students went to their grade level math. If you're familiar with the Moscow Middle School math, and Eric, try not to roll your eyes, I can hear it from here. We have a gazillion levels and a gazillion different ways a child can place into math. And in 23-24, we said, not doing it anymore. If you're 6th grade, you're in 6th grade math, 7th graders in 7th grade math, 8th graders in 8th grade math, except of course for those kids who jump, the jumpers. But that meant that we got rid of those interventional below grade level placements. And when we did that, it was a leap, a big leap. And we added an intervention called Math Lab to help those kids who had not experienced grade level material. And so that was also put in the 23-24 year. And so you can see, so the class of 28, which is this year's 9th graders, as 6th graders, 7th graders, we still got that dip as 8th graders. But this group of our current 8th graders, 6, 7, 8. So we won over the dip. The state did not. The state rides right between 35 and 45 all the time, but they still get that dip in the 8th grade. So this year we won over the dip. We were very excited. Derek and I are having nightmares about this class because of this jump. We are not sure how we're going to get above 73% in the 8th grade. So we've already started thinking of things and interventions and looking at our data and addressing our challenges, because that's going to be a big win. And our 6th graders this year and our 7th graders are really starting out well. So this is the longitudinal look. Do you have questions about it? It's a lot of numbers. I like them.
One of the big things, just to kind of help out, there really is around the state a dip. You see typically, like as far as state averages, you see throughout the elementary, maybe 50% being proficient, maybe slightly below 50%. That really starts to drop in 6, 7, and then the big drop is kind of 8, and then it continues to drop a little in 11. To the point where 11th grade ISATs around the state for math is about 30% proficient. For me, watching this, like this trend of seeing these types of things, and even this, I mean, this is a dip and certainly not, I'm sure, what the math department would say they want. But that is comparatively to what happens in a lot of places around the state, like very good. Now this is what we want, and this is what I look forward to kind of seeing where these kids go throughout their career as they head off into high school. And then this, like this 7th grade class here, is really kind of unprecedented. There's probably some public charter schools that are like, you know, a STEM academy in a large town that have some proficiency rates like that, but they're not other public schools, and certainly not other public schools our size that have that type of performance by kids at the 7th grade level.
And I do have to say, Bob Allinger checks all my data, and we really need to recognize the contribution that Bob makes, because I send this to him, he picks up the phone and is like, what am I looking at? I'm like, okay, I'll add labels. So we really need to acknowledge that he is very, very helpful in our processes.
What, can I ask a question? On that last graph, thank you. What do you think explains the class of 30 starting at such a high level?
So I honestly think that I mean, they're obviously a strong class. I think they had strong 5th grade scores. However, I honestly believe that our constant focus on our change in instructional practices has had a positive impact. And specifically, we are giving daily feedback to every student on their learning, like end of story. We touch base with every kid in our class every day. And that is so important for a 6th grader in that transition time, to have Mrs. Stasko or Mr. Lanham or Ms. Sherman say, oh my gosh, you're doing really great on this, let's talk about this. In those 30-second, 45-second conversations have a great impact, and that's the power of that curriculum and the power of us really working it and asking for help and getting lots of support from Josh Watson at the state level. So I'm gonna give the credit to the 6th grade teachers and the curriculum on that one.
Awesome, thank you.
Remember, these are end of year sixth grade, so this is like they came in sixth grade and scored this. This is like the a lot of it is the impact. And yes, there are variations amongst classes. I mean, if you look at next year's fifth grade class, that's going to be sixth graders probably as a group. You know, with between 150 to 200 per grade level, like they're lower performing, and you're always going to have some fluctuation like that. But lower performing relative to this group, but then watching that growth too, like a lot of times when you see that kind of 68% or 67% proficiency, like you're gonna kind of regress back to the mean or something. I mean, it's like, well, maybe we overperformed, but continued growth is outstanding in middle school, and it doesn't happen in other places.
So Rachel discussed two of the three big changes that we did to our math classrooms. The first was changing our curriculum to illustrative mathematics, and the second is introducing MathLab. And the third big change was how we grade student assessments. So illustrative mathematics is a very different sort of math curriculum than we learned math from. It is a much more student-driven, exploratory, difficult curriculum that does not use memorization and instead activates thinking in the students. And so instead of us teachers doing direct instruction through math, we are instead being the guide on the side. We're guiding students through difficult math problems, answering their questions when they have them. It's an uncomfortable situation to be in, but we've learned to trust the curriculum and to scaffold the students in the right direction. And so over the past 4 years, we've all gotten much better at trusting that curriculum. Second change was introducing MathLab, which is a whole nother hour that students go to math class with us, and those students were selected based on their ISAT scores. If a student received a 1 on the ISAT the previous year, we enrolled them in a MathLab with one of us. The result is small group, one-on-one, guided, more direct instruction when they need it. We also introduced an online platform in MathLab called Imagine Math, which is sort of an AI-guided adaptive learning platform where students engage with it about 15 minutes a day, practicing new skills with help when they need it. The third big change was how we grade student assessments. In order to pass a math class with a D, they have to engage every day one-on-one with the teacher in our formative assessments. It's a brief talk or a quick paragraph written that we review with the student. If they do that every day to the best of their ability, they'll pass the class. But to get the B or the A, students have to be performing well on the tests and doing homework outside of class. This is a good balance that we've found with this curriculum of illustrative mathematics. And we've had a lot of help from the state level that we'll talk about now.
Yep, so like Rachel said before, Josh Watson is the Region 2 representative.
Math guy.
Down in LCS. Yeah, we have harassed him tremendously over the last 3 years. He knows all of our quirks and all of our briberies. So we'd like to say thank you to him officially here, and we are still inviting him. In fact, we're going to have him here up next fall to help us make some more adjustments, specifically with some of this 8th grade crew of how do we keep them on that upward path. Another individual that we want to say thank you to would be Tiffany Poppy from the Imagine Math level. She's been with us quite a while and has helped us quite a bit with that Imagine Math. There's a lot of tech behind, and as much as we say that we're really good at all the techie stuff, it's not good enough, and that's where Tiffany comes in. We also had to kind of support each other, because one of the big changes with this was having to release a lot of that control. As teachers, we like having control, we like structure, probably more than students themselves, and being able to release that classroom and have it adapting to everything that's going on was a big change and a big struggle for us, and we've had quite a few, we call them hard conversations, where we don't necessarily leave liking each other during some of those conversations. You probably know, but they're great conversations to have, and they help us actually build. And so during every collab and for most of the PD days that we can swing to specifically work on our data and our processes, we take every chance that we can. And so if we ever don't show up to a district, you know it's because we're hiding in our rooms going over data and trying to figure out our own stuff with permission. Okay. So that's what we want. So we just wanted to say thank you, and then also give you some idea that we are ongoingly going through this, and it's hard sometimes, and I think we're all better for it.
So we have a philosophy that I want to briefly mention before I talk about the data that we see is that in our math classrooms, we believe that not everybody can show everything, but everybody can show something. And the ISAT is a chance for students to show what they know. And it's a snapshot in time, right? And so one thing that we did during this experiment of Math Lab was kept track of a lot of data. And so to summarize these dots that you see, we see 7th and 8th graders, 7th on the top, 8th grade on the bottom, and their growth between yearly ISATs. The white dots represent a student in a general math classroom, and the green dots represent a Math Lab student. And we're measuring the growth between ISATs. So the higher a dot is, the more growth that student made. And there are large differences between the mean growth between lab students and non-lab students. You can see that in 7th grade, a non-lab student grew just over 100 Q points on the ISAT, while a lab student grew 225 points on average. In 8th grade, it was a smaller difference, but still large, significant gains, 123 growth points on a non-lab student, and 156 points for a lab student. We're very proud of this. I hope you are too.
So these graphs kind of highlight some of the growth and then the medians that you see. So this is 6th grade. So at the top you see our 6th grade general population. You see that median is just above 20 points on their ISAT. And then below is our Math Lab students, which we think this last year was about 14 students. And so you can see that their growth was much closer to 100. So that shows you on the bottom, if you look at the box part of the box and whiskers, it's 75% of our Math Lab students made growth. So we're really seeing in the 6th grade, there are huge jumps when the students are transitioning from 5th to 6th grade and they get that extra help. So that's been something to celebrate. But then in the 7th grade, this is where we're just kind of scratching our heads, so it's the next slide. That's okay. The 7th grade, you still see at the top in our general population, it's about 20 points, but then the Math Lab students, about 40. They're not making as big a growth. And so that's another kind of mystery that we're trying to figure out. Is it perhaps that by 7th grade, they're, too much intervention? Are we intervening too much? Sometimes we have students that are doing a skills class for their IEPs, but then they're also in a math lab. So even though we are still seeing growth, it's just not as great in the 7th grade. So that's something that we're still trying to figure out as well.
And this is the highly deceptive 8th grade Math Lab data. So first, if you were paying attention, Chase was talking about hundreds of points of growth and Nina's talking about 10s and 20s of points. We were measuring by Q-score. It's called a quantile. It's put out by a company called Quantiles and Lexiles. It's a proprietary product. We chose that because Imagine Math produces a quantile score and the ISATs used to produce a quantile score. The state decided to stop doing it. They said Sean told them that they could. Sean says he did not tell them that. Sean said they might have sent me a survey, I didn't answer it. So we couldn't use that. We liked that because it kind of gave us a bridge between our benchmarking and Imagine Math and the ISAT scores, but those apples are gone. So anyway, on to standard scores. So the 8th grade, you can see, it's tough to be an 8th grader, but they all made expected right around 20 points of growth as a group. Now, this is the 8th grade Math Lab. This is extremely deceptive because I look the very bestest of all my friends behind me, but I'm not. At semester, I kicked out most of the 8th graders who had received more than 1 year's of intervention. I'm like, goodbye. And I kept only 5 students who had never been intervened with before. And obviously when you keep a few students who've never been intervened with before, you get a huge jump. And that sort of actually lends itself to more of the 6th grade concept than keeping them there forever. So this is super, super, super deceptive because it looks like the longer you're in, the better you are. But all the ones who are in longer, I tossed. So, and this is part of what we're struggling with. When is enough in Math Lab? What are we doing here? And so that's, I believe, our next steps when we talk with Josh in the fall.
Yep, so just going over everything here again. Once again, we're seeing the biggest growth and the sixth graders, that's the first time that they're gonna be intervened. That's the first time where we raise them. If they were out of grade level, they are now at grade level, and they'll have an entire year at grade level. And then from there, they've got the logical steps and experience and past experience to actually make those jumps in such a way that they're not just continuously left behind and continuously expected to know more than any of their peers. So we're still trying to find the balance between electives and math lab. Math lab is kind of a mandatory thing, and sometimes it's not fun to have to do more math. And then you got those weird kids who want to do it, and we still don't understand them. But we're math teachers, so it's weird. All right, and then we're starting to try and identify who's actually most probable. Math labs aren't infinitely large. We can't just keep filling up more and more math labs. Because at some point it just hits a critical mass of not being as effective. At what point is that just another math classroom? And so we're trying to create this profile for students over the next year or two. We're hopefully going to try and figure out the minutia of it and get some input from our SPED departments and from the state and all of this to try and create this perfect student idea of who would be successful here. So to get that, we started surveying some of our math lab students to kind of see what they think and to get our student input, because as much as we have great ideas, our students probably have better ones, or so they think. So we're going to take some of that and add it to some of our curriculum. But that's it. So if you have any questions, we'd love to take them, or if not, we're good to go.
There is an electives / math lab challenge, in that, it's that balance of we want our kids to explore some things in middle school, not to just get, tracked. We want them to be able to take band or choir or a makerspace class or an art class or, some of these, or another language or something. But also recognize that ultimately for them to be successful is like they've got to have these math skills. And so like finding a good way so that they still have an opportunity. Because when you take a math lab class, like you are losing an elective opportunity. You're losing an elective opportunity. I would argue that to set up for future success, it's more important that our students would have a strong foundation in math to then go be successful than to have, whatever other elective class it is. But there's a balance and like a humanness to it too, right? Like if you push too hard on math, then it'll just be pushed back. If you make the math lab too big of class, then you lose all the effectiveness, and the teachers don't have a chance to really have one-on-one impact for kids. So. It's a tricky thing, but I'm happy that they're looking at it.
I appreciate what you were saying about the kind of professional and personal growth that has had to go into this, and I really commend you all on that. And you kind of alluded in your last comment to just the reality of limited resources, that you only have so much time. You can only have so many classroom sessions a day, and so I just wonder what you feel like your capacity is. Are you do you feel like you're maxed out, you're stretched too thin, trying to meet needs at so many different levels? It does sound like maybe not having to offer 15 different math classes was some time gained back, perhaps.
Yeah, so with our limited resources at the moment, we can't, the more math labs that occur, the larger the general math class becomes. And so it's the trade-off of trying to find that balance. This last year, I believe we ran 5 math labs.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5. Next year, we're slimming it down to 4. It kind of just ultimately depends on the class size and then how many required students or how many of those students that we want to catch or that we can catch at the moment. The big conversation is right now is doubling up on interventions. Is what are we doing in math lab, and is that actually also being met in a special education setting? And so we're still finding that balance. We're taking massive input. In fact, anytime that we have placements, we have their SPED teacher, their next SPED teacher with us. We have counselors with us. We usually have Ms. Summers with us. And we're getting input on all of these levels of, okay, this kid needs to be kid. We need to reward them with choir this year. So where are we at with that? And it goes back and forth. And so that's what we're kind of trying to meet, but we prefer to have all of our labs up 10 students. I think at 10 students, you start getting a massive drop off with the availability. And so we're ultimately limited to 40 students that we can start intervening with. And obviously, we're keeping our focus on the 6th grade where there's that most potential. to where if we can get them early, they don't need it later on. And that's what we're seeing. I think I sent in some numbers today. I think there's only 4 or 5 8th graders even on our list, and most of them are transfers in, they're new, or they're having other stuff going on. I think one's a language student. And so we're creating, when we have the opportunity, we're more than glad to take anyone that we can, that we think will be successful at this. But it's ultimately just down to resources.
Sure. Thank you.
And one thing the state pointed out to us, Kathy Beals, who's the state director of Mathmas, she's like, it's now or never, guys. If you don't intervene by the end of middle school, the data on intervention is sad to look at. So we also are balancing this with knowing this is one of the last stops on the road to make this better. And so that's part of the struggle, and that's, do we want to let go of them? Do we want to hang on? And that's some of the hard conversations that we're having.
Sure.
Do you have some wishes or if only we had type things?
Somehow if we could have more elective periods so that they could do the fun class and math lab and their skills class to work on their IEP goals. So if somehow that could
Like
happen.
an 8-period day.
Yeah.
8-period day, Ms.
Who
Evans, get on
wants-
that.
But
Who wants to
just for some of the
touch
kids,
to
right?
Just for some, like,
Who wants to touch the middle school bell agenda? You're more
Not
than
me.
welcome to. I think you would get more than 60, you would get a super majority of the middle school. But, right, it's true. She doesn't want to say yes.
Does make sense, just doesn't look like it.
Yeah, it just doesn't look like it, that's right.
Tammy, do you have anything else as building principal about their work or anything else you want to share?
No, I mean, I would just recognize again what amazing professionals these people are. And I'm the new girl, this is my first year as principal, and so my job has been and has continued to be this year, just trying to do stuff so that they don't have to do it and I can just let them do their job, right? Like I just try to smooth the pathway as much as possible so that they can be their amazing selves. That's really like the only contribution I make at all, is just trying to help them not have to do a bunch of busy work or things like that so that they can do their job. They're just extremely impressive people and I just am so proud to have them on our team. And I'm sure you're proud of them too. But, yeah.
Really good. Terry's former elementary teacher, Eric's here, he's a former English teacher. I'm glad to be with my people, the math teachers, as a former math teacher. And I am super proud because when the English teachers come and present, they never give graphs like that. But in all seriousness, they've done a great job. Another thing for us as a district, which is a continued challenge, and I'm going to talk a little about in my report about kind of some ISAT scores, is we still are, while we exceed state averages at every grade level, we're still seeing a dip at the high school, and I'm hoping through time, like it takes 3 years from the time they take the 8th grade ISAT to the 11th grade ISAT. In the past, our middle school was not, I would say, exactly setting them up for success because that downward turn had already happened. And we were starting to drop in proficiency. Now for 2 years continuously, we've had that turned around and reversed. And so as we continue to watch the data and continue to invest in making sure our high schoolers graduate proficient, I really feel like we're starting at this level that's going to put them on a path to success. So it may take some time, but they're doing the right work and they're making a difference. Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
I told them they didn't have to stick around.
Got to go first.
All right, we will move on to Eric and Moscow High School.
Well, Sean, you were right. There will be no chart.
No chart.
No need for the screen whatsoever. When I was thinking about this presentation, there's a lot of exciting things going on at Moscow High. We're always trying new things, and they're fun things, of course, like we just had the girls' state champion track stuff, and it's just, all of that's great. But what I think my favorite thing this year has been is the year prior, we did some surveying of students about what kinds of things would you like to take at Moscow High. part of this is an effort to, meet some needs, but also to get kids to stay with us, right? And those surveys came back and we implemented 3 new elective courses. A creative writing course, a media literacy course, that's not the upcoming required thing, and a film as literature course. And these, I've sat in all of them, and they are just a hoot with a bunch of really engaged kids. And so what I thought, instead of a bunch of charts, I would bring some students who have either taken or are taking these classes, just kind of give you a brief overview of what it is, what they like about it, those kinds of things, because I think it's a really important part of a high school education is to get that rounded bit. Math's important too. But anyway, who wants to go first?
I can go first.
All right, set the bar high. You take your chance.
You have your chance. Hi, I'm Shara Frost, and I'm here to speak about the creative writing class. So, to start off, I am huge on creative writing. Maybe writing essays isn't my strong point, but creative writing is. It is something I've loved for a very long time, and I was extremely excited the moment I got that survey and creative writing was on it, and it was the first thing I circled. When I took the class, it was really fun. I particularly loved the daily writing prompts that she had us do. Miss Ireland, wonderful teacher, by the way, love her. And those were really helpful. And I also liked how she focused on different parts of it because there are several different units, of course. Nonfiction creative writing, which was definitely interesting and new to people like me. There was our classic creative writing, short stories. Mine was not so short, but whatever. Let's think. I know there was poetry, which I have to admit, poetry is not my favorite. But I really enjoyed the course because of how it explored the different types of poems. And I loved our project for that because it was several poems all connected over one topic, and my topic was hating poetry, which was really fun to do, actually. It turned out really well. And then I believe those were our main 3 units, and then at the end we chose one of our projects to make better. I chose my creative nonfiction project, which I had a lot of fun making. And I may be a little bit of a weirdo because I love writing so much, but when I was in the class first semester, so that's the first semester, anyone can take it, and I saw a lot of writers like me, people who really loved writing, but there were also some kids that weren't already totally invested in creative writing, and I saw them really enjoy the class too. And I saw more of those kids show up second semester because I was not in second semester because I want to give other people a chance. Just like with next year, I was so tempted, but no. A friend of mine was in it, and she really enjoyed it, even though she is not a huge writer. I believe that the creative writing class is a really good class for anybody because creative writing is such a good skill to have, to be able to tell a story and to understand how a story works. And I have to say, it even ties in with English because when you're reading things in English, if you have creative writing knowledge, you can kind of see what the author was doing more easily. And let's see, is there anything else I should touch on? Did I prepare for this? No. Busy life.
What is creative writing nonfiction?
That was my question.
Yeah, sorry, I stole your question.
So,
I don't know this.
that can range from several things. I personally did a personal essay, where a personal essay is kind of like an essay, but ignore the usual word format, and it focuses more on the writer too. Some people did a snapshot kind of into a piece of their lives, a memory. During peer review of people's stuff, I read one where they were talking about a story that they were read to as a child. And I'm going to focus more on the personal essay because that's what I did. But I found that really helpful and like kind of, I don't have the right word for it, but I focused on my journey with creative writing, and since it has been part of my life for so long, it was very impactful. And I believe that a lot of those nonfiction pieces were very impactful for the students that wrote them. And honestly, I believe the same with a lot of them. Another person I know wrote her creative nonfiction piece about some mental health issues, and I know that was really impactful for her because I've talked with her since. And overall, the class is just really fun. Personally, my favorite unit, of course, was the short story. I hit the max word limit and then had to cut it down so it was at the max word limit. And then I believe that's most of what I have to touch on, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, who's jumping?
Next.
Me?
Okay. I was told that I didn't have to prepare anything, so we're gonna fly off our seat with this one. True, genuine feelings about this class. I honestly love it so much.
First of all,
Which class?
Which class?
Yeah, name.
What? You can't read my mind? I'm Ethan Maxer, I'm a junior at Moscow High, and I'm talking about media literacy. Sorry. It's an amazing class. I love it very much. It touches on, instead of writing a message or reading a message, it touches on the message itself and how to decode it. So we analyze media such as moral panics, like the Reformation, they say the Satanic Panic, and a bunch of other ones. But we learn why people have moral panics, such that there's confusion, there's no knowledge, and then there's volatility because of there's not enough info or information. But that's just one part. Another part is, so class is kind of split into two parts. One, learning how media is portrayed, how people send their message across, different ways to get the message to the decoder. And then the other half is using those skills we learned in a video for the high school, Good Morning MHS. Now, we kind of went overboard and kind of started off with some amazing skills because we're all iPad kids, but but we did learn a lot. Like I said, we learned how moral panics worked. We learned how to write our own presentations, which was like presentations like the ones the math teachers did. It was like I didn't know they could do that, or how to do that. Sorry. It's a very like open and like it helps like for at least the Good Morning MHS side, it helps us think critically because we have to think about how many kids are going to see this. Like if we make a joke and about some important information, like let's use an example of the girls' state champion winning or girls' state track. If we make a joke about that, we have to make sure the information comes after or before because we're going to assume people are going to laugh. We have to make sure our audio is great because the school speakers and computers aren't not good. And during our process of our brainstorming, when we think critically, one thing I noticed was like I thought I had a bunch of great ideas and all these other kids would not, but they brought new light to what I'd known, and it was like our ideas would bounce off of one another and we get these crazy cool skits. And Mr. Dalebout, our teacher, very much agrees that it was such a great experience for the kids because they learned how to think critically, send messages media to get the right message across, learn how to decode media for what we need to do, like news sources, how to cross-reference and read laterally, not vertically, and just understand the overall trends of how the media goes, like on Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that. Do you guys have any questions?
So since taking the class, you're in the class, have you found that you have been able to maybe intervene with some of your peers? If they start to say like, oh my gosh, did you see? You're like, whoa, let's check that. Are you sure that's really what, like, can you help them be more media literate?
I definitely think so, but some of my friends are a little more not very willing to hear out. But that's okay, because we're just having fun. But I definitely do think I can teach these skills to anyone here if I'm given enough prep time. All right,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
De-stress.
I'm Callie Mallet.
I'm Basil Sauer.
We're both juniors at the high school, and we've been taking film as literature with Ms. Lyon this semester at the high school. And basically you rhetorically analyze different films from different genres and time periods that they were made. And you see how you can kind of like apply that each time and why a writer or director may have made those choices in that film. And I said that's a pretty good class. Do you guys have any questions?
So what was your favorite film that you picked apart?
You can't have me pick that.
Well, one. Tell me
you
one.
You look through so much different stuff. Like you look at why a film may have been like cinematically important, whether it's the time that it was released, because that is going to affect your audience like huge. Like we just finished watching Casablanca, and it's going to hit the audience that is currently experiencing World War II a lot differently than it's going to like affect us. But it's still really important to see how a film can reach people that way and kind of how that can affect like an audience. So it's like, for me, it's been really interesting learning about just how all these different films that are all like different can use some of the same like techniques to get different outcomes.
So can you describe 2 techniques that a director might use?
2 techniques? Well, we started off the semester with like camera angle techniques. So it's like when we watched Citizen Kane, which is one of the first movies that we ended up watching, they literally cut a hole in the floorboard to get one specific shot of Mr. Kane, and it really does add to the scene and how that kind of revolutionized like camera angles. Well, that would probably be mine. You can probably come up with one.
The second one that I would choose is with the storytelling and providing sort of aesthetic appeal with Edward Scissorhands, with the contrast between Edward and the castle, as well as the cities, or the town, this suburban area. It just lets you think, why would they choose this, and why they made that specific artistic choice with the movie.
What do you imagine like you will carry with you 10 years from now? What are you gonna remember about
I
this
can't
class?
watch movies the same way anymore. You know when you're like sitting there and you're just like enjoying a film and you're not thinking about anything, you're just letting yourself be affected. That's not possible anymore.
That's a real sell for that class. Good.
Well, I'm thinking about it and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, that moved me. And then I'm like, but why did it move me? Oh.
Is the audience allowed to ask questions?
Yeah, sure.
Do you have coming out of the class, do you have a favorite cinematographer or director or style?
I have always, this is like a little nerd moment. I am obsessed with the scores of different films. And so it's like when we watch that's something that I pay attention to. And so it's like, I want to say that oh my gosh, I wish I could remember his name. The composer that typically works at Tim Burton, so on Edward Scissorhands, he's probably one of my favorites. Yeah, he also made the music for like Corpse Bride. And those are just some of like my favorite like little comfort, which is crazy to say, like a Tim Burton film is a comfort film. Most of his are. But what about you?
I'm not good at memorizing names, especially for people I haven't met myself. But it would have to be.
Well, I know we watched 2 Coen Brothers films.
It would have to be the Coen Brothers.
They use a lot of like the dark, dry humor that teenagers really appreciate, actually. So, I think that would probably be a good answer for directors of a film. Oh, I could have just said Tim Burton.
Both fun.
So I gotta know, like, is there a good like film that we all should watch though, or like
A film that you should all
like if you had to pick one, it's like the only film you can watch for like a year. I know it's hard, but
What are you watching right now?
We're currently watching Cool Hand Luke. You were supposed to give us the conversation for that movie, actually,
I know
Mr.
I was, I'm
Perryman.
sorry.
I would say Casablanca, because I recently watched that.
Casablanca is a really good film, but I think that the one that may have resonated with me the most, or there's actually two that I would pick, mostly because even though they were made several years ago, you can kind of find similarities to what we see like in real life now. And that would be Citizen Kane and Sunset Boulevard. So, yeah, those would be the two that I recommend watching. If you can watch a black and white film. They are both black and white. And I know that does lose some people.
Because you're talking to a couple older people.
Yourself, Ken.
One myself.
Black and white.
Not you.
Black and white. Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you guys. Thanks.
Thank you for coming. Thanks for listening, and there's just more fun stuff happening.
If you remember, it was about this time last year that the three teachers that were referenced kind of had put together nice proposals, and the board approved it. We were in them. I remember we were in the Moscow High School auditorium. I remember Dawn, you asked a few questions about Mr. Dale about his class. And yeah, so great things happening, a lot of great, we were talking about like focus on math and ISAS. It's just a reminder as well that whether it's our middle school and especially in our high school, like there's a lot of great opportunities for kids.
Yeah.
For
I was
students.
gonna keep talking after
Yeah.
I sat down, but Ms. Lyon, I
Yeah.
cannot think of a more perfect teacher to teach this class to me. She makes it very clear, and her comments that she adds in it, like her own little opinions, just add a lot, and I really enjoy the class.
Miss Ireland is awesome as well. I love her feedback on her stuff.
I actually want to add a little piece of advice. Now, I didn't get to watch his ELI, his
Oh, yeah, you did that
Mr. Dalebout. He did an ELI on how to teach media literacy better. So he's even looking forward to more ways to make it better, as well as how we've already learned it.
It's really great. The high school teachers, the staff is amazing and they do a great job, and great examples of creating classes that are focused one around the teacher's interest, but also what students would want to take. It's just a lot of good opportunities, a lot of great academic opportunities at our high school.
Imagine what we'll do when we have a high school with good speakers.
Now I should I should open it up really quick, the cell phone policy. This is your chance, you've got the board, and you can be honest, just don't be derogatory or anything. This is your one, you got, and then I'll cut you off at 10 seconds. Go, no.
Understand not using them in class.
Yeah.
Most people don't use them in class. But making it to where I can't text my mommy when I'm moving from math to English is just mean. I need my emotional support text from my mother to get through the school day sometimes. Like finals week, I would love to look at a little message before my AP Lang final and be like, oh, my mom believes in me. I can do this.
She does, I know.
But no, I can't do that because it'll get taken away, and then she's gonna be mad at me because she has to come to the office and grab it.
Fair enough.
I would like to do the opposite. I can understand why we have it, but I feel like it kind of helps more against those who don't understand that they can use it as a tool. Those of them who want to use it as a distraction, it's more useful for them, but it restricts those who want to use it as a tool to learn better. Like, because on school Chromebooks for media literacy, you kind of have to go to your phone to look at all these other websites and stuff that are blocked for entertainment purposes or like political news that's a little too sensitive. But we have to analyze it to understand why. For example, books are banned. We have to analyze why books are banned, but we can't go search through the books because they're not in the library, so we have to use online sources. But the only way we can access those online sources is through the phone because they're blocked on the Chromebooks.
An instance with the new cell phone policy is I have an open 6 period because I'm taking an online class. And in that in-between time, which would be in between 5th and 6th, I have to often text people who I need to get a ride from earlier than I can before I leave the building. There are instances where I have had faculty or staff attempt to take my cell phone and then I have to have an awkward conversation of, I am currently texting the person, so
and
I
then
don't,
you're not technically in class.
and also that I'm not technically in class anymore.
I understand not having them within class because I have seen students just straight up playing on their phones. That happens. But between classes, I feel like that might have gone a little bit too far. Another issue I have isn't quite with cell phones, but it's like adjacent because it was wrapped up in it, is the headphone thing.
Headphones policy.
Because most things don't really have a plug-in for headphones anymore. And I myself have Bluetooth headphones that do have a cord that I can attach to a computer, but it's incredibly frustrating. And I understand not wanting people to hide earbuds, like in their hair or something. But with over-the-ear headphones, you can kind of tell pretty easily that they're wearing headphones. So I think it might be a good idea to maybe lighten up on that aspect a little bit. It's like, because currently I believe the rule is it has to be over the head and connected to a computer, and it tends to be a little much.
Fair enough. Smart things to do as a superintendent generally doesn't include asking high schoolers about a cell phone.
I appreciate the honesty. Yeah.
And also,
yeah.
Like Ethan said, using them as tools in the classroom, that has run into problems a couple times with myself, particularly in choir recently, because it can be a little bit of a...
For our backing tracks.
Yeah.
Everything on the Chromebook is blocked by GoGuardian because it belongs to the category music.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm looking for music, yeah.
Yeah, and it's also shown up as a problem a couple other times in other classes.
Thanks.
So it's more like, I understand not allowing them in class, but like, it might be a good idea to allow teachers to individually approve it.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to do
I
some
wanna go eat blueberry pancakes.
media literacy.
I have to study.
Okay,
I know, I was
Lombard
like,
Conrad is up.
Email, not text.
wow, really cleared out, I think everybody, like, we gotta go, you know?
Back in my day, we used to play on a TI-85 if we wanted to play video games.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. Some of you have already seen this. We're going to keep it to about 10 minutes, but we'll be around, of course, after the board meeting for any questions. I'm Mark Hazel. This is Asia Davis. We're with Lombard Conrad Architects. We were hired initially by the city to evaluate a site just south of the Palouse River, just south of Palouse River Drive that they currently own. This site we were evaluating was to see what we could do in collaboration with the school district to provide not only sports fields, but also a school site for the district. So we started in a very generalized way where we evaluate what are the site constrictions and restraints on this property. One of the major ones is the Palouse River, which has a 100-year floodplain and a 500-year floodway that sits just north of on the property line. What this does is it affects the overall buildable area so that we stay outside of that floodway. We put the parking and field areas within that potential flood area and located the school area to the south, which you can see with that white box. That white box started off as just a general mass, and then we developed from there. So we went through several iterations. Sean, if you were able to scroll through some of those. So what we were looking for was how can we fit the maximum amount of parking in the right location to support the school, provide bus drop-off, provide a nice playground area, and provide the concessions and sports fields needed by the city. So I'll just run through these real quickly. There's another concept where we pulled the school more centralized and put the parking south along where that new residential development is occurring. it kind of restricts the overall parking down there. It doesn't really allow for any future growth or expansion. As you can see, we also have the bridge and footpath that we are anticipating for crossing the Palouse River and tying into that additional parking to the north. And then another iteration, but all these were, with the parking more centralized. We felt like this was too far of a drive into the parking area and back out. What that does is it just keeps staff, students parked in cars on site longer. We want to get them in and out as quickly as possible, just to keep the flow of traffic moving, as well as provide reasonable parking area for the overall fields. Through these evaluations, not only with the city but with the school district, we decided to pull that parking over to the roadway, the main roadway, so that we had direct access off of that to the parking. It just, stacking wise and visually, it just makes more sense. And then we looked at more closely, what would this single story versus two-story footprint look like, and how would that affect the overall site? As you can see, this is a more accurate depiction of the square footage of a 40 to 50,000 square foot building and what that would do to this overall site. As you can see, it becomes like a long linear L shape. What that does is it provides a little bit more security concerns as far as more entries into the building. It starts to block off that playground and block off the south area and that one grass soccer field from the rest of the campus. And so scrolling down one more, this is a more developed two-story option. This seems to provide not only everything that as much as possible that the school district was looking for, but also the city was looking for in play fields. So as you can see, we have softball, little league fields, t-ball, football, lacrosse fields, a breakdown by age of size of soccer fields, as well as a two-story model that puts that gym right up there on the northeast corner, not only for close access to the parking area, just to the northeast, but also close proximity to the other athletic areas. If you follow this path around, you can see that we've got a cafeteria area located down here. This provides direct access to that area so that any food deliveries can get in and out. We've got our school playground area here, and this blue line is indicating roughly the demarcation based upon what the city has drawn out of what the school district would take or own and what the city would own. So it's really becoming this, how do we separate these two sites but still have a cohesive campus to it?
There's been some talk, interrupting a little as Mark's presenting, but is this a Joseph Fields? Like, this type of project would not be Joseph Fields. We own the property, and we pay the city to help manage it, and we operate it as school district use first, and then the city use comes second after that. This really would be like a different kind of model in which we're just carving out a piece that is school property, and really the city, other than the overflow parking, which would just be kind of shared parking, would not use that school space. And then the rest of the space would be city property, and really we would be hands off on that. We wouldn't schedule people to play on the fields, or they would be city owned and operated fields. The joint part is that, could we fit on there? Could we co-develop that parking lot? And another thing that comes up with parking is there's these flashbacks to the current West Park setting, in which the city owns all the parking.
Yeah.
And we have to pay for that permit every year. This would be ample parking for an elementary school needs. And we would actually have overflow, and you really wouldn't, other than the pickleball that we know about up in that top northern part, there's not a lot of co-use times with these types of fields.
And if that red area up in the northeast corner, that's just vacant space right now. That could be future pickleball, or that could be additional parking, depending on what the needs are.
Are we imagining then that where the bus drop off is, there's that slant parking? Would that be on this side? That'll be like staff parking during the day, and then And there would, I think we said there might be like 1 or 2 spaces for like you're coming to pick your sick kid up, so you could hop, it would be short-term sort of parking. But then if a parent came to volunteer, they could just park in that bigger parking.
Yes.
Where there's like an event.
Really, I imagine
Segregating the bus drop off too as well from the parent pickup and drop off.
if parents were picking up and dropping off, I mean, I would still imagine this entrance would be it, and you could
Okay.
just temporarily park there, walk in, get your child,
Okay.
and leave or park here. But it would be possible.
Okay, but that's mostly staff, that's
Mostly
intended for our
staff,
teachers.
Potentially visitors.
Okay,
And bus.
And the bus lane.
yeah.
So yeah, we start off with just a general, we're gonna move into the floor plans. Aja's gonna speak to those. She's really done quite a bit of work in the floor plan development and the rendering development for this, so I'm gonna pass it off to her. But we started with just general adjacency diagrams for the 2-story model, classroom layouts, both for where the pre-K through kindergarten and special needs would be best located, as well as gymnasium, the office admin area, as well as the cafeteria. So just looking at how these pieces and parts fit together, and then Aja not only helped us through that development, but also took it from there and really put a lot more detail into the overall concept. Probably taking it further than just conceptual.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, so I'm gonna over here, I'll explain it to you guys better. I know there's a camera right there, but things like that. Just kind of walk you through the concept. This would be your admin space right here. That's where the parent drop-off is. This is where your bus area would be. So yeah, your admin space would have your offices. You would have a nurse area, conference room, things like that. So parents can come right in, go to your conference room, and it'd still kind of be like, in the lack of a better, mouse-trapped, secured, things like that. So you can just walk through the whole building. You just need to talk to a parent really fast or things like that. But anyways, as you enter your main entrance, you head into your 1st grade and 2nd grade area. Kind of your, almost like they're a little bit older and things like that, but they're still like it's centralized and such. Your library's right here, and then
Either way, I was trying to zoom in.
we kind of call this area like the like younger kids and more things like that. So special ed, kindergarten, and pre-K. These spaces would each have a bathroom attached to their classrooms, and they also have a hallway to attach, so you can go in between each classroom. So if teachers want to work together or things like that, it kind of gives that flexibility. And also you would have a breakout space, which are between the 2 pods. So between this pre-K, they would have their own kind of breakout space, so they can do individual learning or little work kind groups if students need some extra help or things like that. You want to zoom out a little bit?
Yeah, what's in top left that Sean's zoomed off the screen?
Top left? Oh, right here?
Top left. Well, even more left.
Yeah.
That.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, that's the cafeteria?
Yep.
So yeah, your 2nd, 1st grade here, you'd have your cafeteria.
Okay.
And then you have also your music attached to your gymnasium. So this offer like a kind of a dual stage area. So let's say during the day, there's students using the gym for their PE class, but then also there's music happening. They can have that separation. But at night, you just want to have an after-school activity, a concert, things like that. You open this wall up, this becomes a whole seating area. So people can gather and the community can gather and things like that.
And you no doubt have thought about this, but like basketball's dribbling in the gym, is there enough sound prevention that people practicing
Yeah, this
their
is
choir are not gonna have like cross purposes?
Yeah, it's a pretty common thing we're seeing in schools and things like that now. So there's many different ways that we can like do acoustics, use like curtains and things like that. I'm not probably the best person like to explain the greatest details of those, but yeah, these are getting pretty common because now it's offering that dual use, and you wouldn't have to have kind of this like dead space during the day.
Oh, no, it just the ability to set up outside of the gym activities we're away from, and bring in the chairs, bring in the parents. It just allows a little bit more flexibility overall.
Right, so you can have a secure door here, and this could be open to the public also after school hours. And you wouldn't have to worry about anything happening here. This would just be kind of controlled, like a control setting almost.
So is there a restroom area there then?
Yes, there's a restroom right here.
Okay.
Want to talk about control points?
Yeah, so if you want to zoom out a little bit, Sean.
Zoom out.
Perfect. Yeah, so during, let's say you guys have do they still do like the book fairs and things like that? They did that when I was in school. Okay, so we'll use that example. Let's say you guys want to have a big community book fair for your whole district in the evenings, let's say from 5 to 9 o'clock. You can set off, so the rest of the school can be closed, things like that. You'd have a control point of access right here. You have all these things happening here, the book fair, You can also control this in the music room off, storage and tea room. You can also like close that off completely. If you don't want to open it, you could if you want to play music while things are happening. It's an option. But you can close this door, lock it, and still have all this space left. And then no one, in theory, no one can be able to get through here and things like that. So you wouldn't have to worry about if teachers have left the doors unlocked or people going into rooms when they're not supposed to be. You guys have any question about floor 1 or before we head to floor 2 or?
Stairs are here.
Yeah, so main stairways and then you have 2 side stairs on each side. So here and here.
And an elevator is?
Yes, right here. It's central.
The second, okay.
So you come off admin, this is where we also teach on this, you can head straight to elevator, or if students need it from those 2 main entrances.
Passive monitoring for the elevator right there, that's a centralized location.
So you head up the staircase or come off the elevator, you'd have a workroom right there, and then you'd also have your 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders right here. And then you have your 6th graders. You have 4 shelled out classrooms. This can be developed later if you needed to, school district, and kind of just planning for the future. If maybe you don't need them for a few years, but it's always good to have it, easier just to have.
We went through discussions on how, budget-wise, how we could potentially, in the most cost-effective way, provide flexibility for future growth. And the shelled out, just providing blank canvas, not even providing gypsum walls in the interior of that space for future build out when it occurs, because if you don't actually build that shell, the likelihood that you're going to come in and actually add a structure later is going to be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, and also you're going to be working on an active campus, so it's much easier to control the work within that room, cordon off a little area outside of that for your staging and materials, and bring it on.
What's the area above the office area?
Oh, right here. This would be your art room, so that can you would have art right above admin. It would have these really beautiful views. We actually went out to the site today. We kind of looked around, things like that. We noticed where the school would be placed. In theory, you can actually see Moscow Mountain pretty clear, which is pretty great. That was just truly a luck of the draw. But that was honestly that's a great thing.
Yeah.
What's more inspiring than Moscow Mountain, which will lead to our next part of the renders. It's perfect segue. I totally planned that out, everybody. I promise. But do you guys have any questions about the floor plans or things like that right now? So just to kind of give you an idea, a concept of an interior render, this would be your main stairwell coming right off of the side entrance from the bus area. So your pre-K, special ed, and kindergarten would be down the left way, and then your 1st and 2nd graders would go down the right way, also to your music, your cafeteria, and your gymnasium area.
What we want to highlight here is what you can really do with just simple color palettes. All the materials that we would be anticipating, not only for the interior, exterior, are readily available. Nothing is a specialized material.
And this kind of give you guys, I know many of you are from Moscow and things like that, but it's kind of give you a brief history of how we picked the materials. A lot of us know that Moscow used to be a big manufacturing brick town in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So we kind of thought, what if we brought that back a little bit and kind of paid tribute to that, especially with this new building. And also, this kind of connects you back to like what the town was, why this town became this town. And also adding nice metal paneling to contribute to an agricultural industry here, which is still thriving extremely well. So here we would just use the manufactured materials like in the US. We wouldn't have to necessarily worry about tariffs and things like that. These are like locally can be done. We wouldn't be a big worry about like price and things like that. Also adding simple moves with the brick like an ombre effect and simple push and pulls that give it kind of that edge but still doesn't really bring up the cost or things like that.
So this would be the primary entry for the facility. You can see over here the bus drop off. This would be the parent drop off and temporary parking. The gym. So what we really want to do is get away from the old look of the small doors with the big blank canvas around it. And really open this up so if you can bring some natural light out. Kind of draws you in, especially when the sun goes down much earlier in the winter. And then the main entrance is actually right around this corner, which we have a better shot of.
So yeah, you have your main entrance, there'd be your admin, you go right into there. That would be where you pick up your child or drop them off or anything like that. And then you'd also have your conference room right there for parents and community use. And then of course your first and second grade and your third and fourth and fifth grades up there in that area.
And the idea then is because the bus drop off is on the other corner, the kids coming in on the bus don't have to go through that primary entrance, they go in through that secondary
Right, and
entrance.
especially the younger kids could head straight like to kindergarteners and like if little trips happen and everything like that, they could just go right off and not have to worry about it. They could go to the main industry really
Yeah.
too, but they just go straight there. And then this would be as you're driving up to the school.
So the two-story volume also gives a better prominence on the site. So architecturally, we appreciate that and like that. It takes it from a low-slung horizontal plane to a more vertical, compact form, more easily identifiable. Becomes more of a marker. And then our overall shots.
Yeah. It'd also give you the ability to have a bigger playground area and have to be able to have one for kind of younger students and then maybe one for older students to have that space broken up and let it breathe still, not feel overwhelming.
We tried to exaggerate that hillside as much as possible, but it doesn't give, it's really hard to get a perspective that accurately shows it, but that, of course, that hillside is pretty steep. One of the benefits there is that if you're looking for screening of your site, simple chain link is going to do it because you have that hillside there. It's a little bit more cost effective. And then
that gray is not a road, that is like a retaining wall or a hill right now, it's just a really steep hill.
And then a perimeter track all the way around.
Yeah, walking track.
I believe there's 2 more shots and then that shows it a little bit better.
With the playground here now.
Yeah.
I missed that last time. Was that in the?
Yeah,
cool.
Just seeing how it would look if you added 2 different spaces and kind of we can play with that.
And here's the image with kind of the overflow parking that the city had been talking about. One of the concerns I think of the city is like getting from this parking lot to
the
deep into here, but that would help address. And then this is the Arboretum. You want to talk just a little bit, since we're talking about the building, about like 2-story versus 1-story, you mentioned it a little, kind of the prominence. One of the questions that comes up a lot of times is like, if you were wanting to do that, like cost-wise and just other considerations.
So early on, I think Sean actually brought this up early on when we were looking at the process of, what are the general cost differences between a single story and a 2-story? And I've ran comparisons not only for projects that we've produced, but also through programs that we have like RS Means, which takes national data and provides it in a digestible way so that we can get accurate metrics for what we're seeing industry-wide. And generally, a single story versus 2-story is about 5% one way or the other when it comes to footprint size versus verticality. So when I say 5% one way or the other, that really starts to come down to site specifics. How are your soils? What types of footings do you need? How much acreage are you affecting? And also the local labor market and whatever type of unique factors are in place on the economy. Like when we were doing Moscow Police, we had HVAC issues as far as those were high costs. So those are factors that can play one way or the other, or for TPO. But some things that become a little bit, that help become a determining factor, especially for something like a school district, which has to worry, or a state agency or a county agency, are things like roofing. So single story facility, we're gonna have a lot more roofing material on this building. It's not nearly twice as much because that gym is a pretty large footprint. It's a 2-story footprint. But when you're looking at a 20 to 30 year lifespan on that roofing, that starts to add up over the life. We design and build these buildings for 100+ years.
That's what we do here.
Yeah.
We do a good job of that.
Yeah, you do a good job. And you maintain those, and you have to maintain those. It becomes expensive. So when we're looking at the cost between a single story and a 2-story, we're looking at footings and foundations, right? That's a huge impact. If you have poor soils out there and you find a pocket where you had somebody say an old construction site where somebody was dumping their crap out there and now you have to take care of it, you've got a little bit more risk there. We did the Idaho Central Credit Union down by the railroad, and there was a lot there to deal with. So you do run into those conditions where you've got these soil conditions you have to worry about. And there is more space that has to go into a 2-story versus a single story. When I say more space, that's circulation space. So you will have, more hallways, an elevator, more stairways, but generally we see that those costs offset the additional HVAC cost for a single story because you have a much longer footprint to control. So there is some resources that can be recouped from having a stacked facility with HVAC systems that just run more vertically as opposed to horizontally. And also security concerns. We kind of touched on that in the beginning, but access and security control is a huge deal. It's depending on how far you want to go with the monitoring of it. But it provides you less control points to have to monitor overall as a staff and as a district.
Can you say anything about overall energy consumption of 2-story versus 1-story?
Your 2-story is going to be slightly less than a single story.
That's what I was told.
Not only, so those, we're going through this with a school in Ontario, Aiken Elementary, where we're now adding on to, but basically because they have so many, all their classrooms empty out to the exterior. So we just have one big long breezeway. The more control points you have, the more points you have for doors opening and closing, losing energy. So the 2-story model is going to be more efficient. You can usually get a more energy efficient mechanical system with the 2-story from what we've experienced and from what we have heard from our mechanical engineers.
And do you know if any soil analysis has been done out there or history of what's been out there?
Not to this point. Generally, we would not recommend, when you purchase a property, we would recommend soil investigations, but because of the size of this is 6 acres. Until you know where your building is gonna go, your building footprint, I would not advise to go out there and just start potholing. Granted, if you were buying this from a private developer, I would absolutely go do 5 or 6 in various locations, but I'd wait till the footprint is a little more established. It's not a huge cost, but it's still a savings, and you can start to really identify and pinpoint exactly where you want those borings to occur, so you know precisely what soil conditions you're dealing with.
I think it's been pretty much farmed.
Yeah, I think there's
there
generally an
hasn't been a bridge
agricultural
there.
history. It's not like there's been a railroad bed through it, but
Yeah.
I mean, there's no guarantee of anything. But like, and the other thing I would say is I don't know what the residential construction that's starting to happen out there. Would you assume that some of those private contractors have done some, ground study work or?
Oh, yeah, up on that hillside, yeah,
so as you
absolutely.
go up the hill. Yeah.
But residential is a completely different ball game. A lot looser. If you've ever seen them just go out and pour a footing, or it's a lot looser.
They did a lot of earth moving up there too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any concerns. I mean, knowing what I know about this area and the fact that is pretty much from what the history shows untouched besides agricultural land, I think it's a really safe bet. Hence why the city probably owns it.
It's really exciting to see.
Great. We'll continue to talk about facilities a little, and like Mark said, they plan to stick around a little bit. So. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming up, Mark.
Yeah.
Right, we move on to our first public comment period. The Board of Trustees values participation by all our constituents. Public comments is a time to present concerns or issues and to share information or ideas. The board listens to and values your comments. Due to open meeting law, the board will not directly answer questions or respond at this meeting, but may ask the superintendent for further information or to respond to the issue presented if required. Due to time constraints, comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name for the record. Are there any public comments? No? Okay.
There's another opportunity.
There's another opportunity at the end too, so. All right, well, we'll move on then. So, okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the Director of Superintendent's report.
All right, let our directors go. We have first up Jennifer Johnson, award-winning Jennifer Johnson and the business team. If you didn't see that, for how many years in a row we got to update that.
We are.
Yeah, our 5th year in a row. There are not many school districts. It is very limited that are meeting that standard as far as governmental accounting and reporting and accountability overall. And Jennifer and her team continue to knock it out of the park and continue to receive that every time. The feedback from the firm that evaluates it, I forget their acronym now, but GFOA, has she's continually reduced each year, and at this point it's almost like they're putting in some things because they feel like they have to. So they've done just a great job. So award-winning Jennifer Johnson.
Well, in my presentation today, I really could just say the words budget and negotiations, and I would be done with my report. But seriously, things are running smoothly in the business office. We're wrapping up loose ends for year-end process prior to all of our staff leaving. We need to connect with them so that we can fill in those gaps. Meeting with various department heads to discuss the federal program allocations, and then determine the expenses for next year. And then finally, we're diving into the cumulative software, double checking the setup of the refresh data. And so we're going through phase 2 again to make sure that everything is as we expect it to be, from SMS to the Q sandbox. And then with that, we're planning on showcasing the purchasing module to our building secretaries first. We want them to have a heads up of what this is going to look like and how it will operate, because they do use Skyward on a daily basis, and we want to make sure they're familiar with all that goes into that before we go live in November. So they'll have a chance to look at it. We're hoping the second week of June. We need to send an email to make sure that works for them, and that way kiddos are gone for the summer, and so they'll have some more time. But then we also want to revisit it in August, and then again before we go live, of course, so they feel comfortable. And they're not just, it's not sprung on them to say, okay, here you go, do your purchase orders in a whole new branding system. So we're excited about that. My team and I will lead that presentation. So that's all I have.
Yeah, I was working hard and burning the midnight oil with the budget stuff. I mean, obviously trying to get that ready to go, and she happens to have a daughter getting married too, so that is like about probably as busy as it gets. But there's
Might not have been the best timing for Taylor, but she did, so we're working with it.
What's the date?
June 7th.
Oh, wow.
soon. And a budget that's due to the paper and the good work and trying to get answers from a superintendent that's busy too. So thanks, John. Butch with operations stuff.
Thank you. Buildings and grounds, we are wrapping up our summer temporary hiring and also getting the buildings planned for all of our projects and cleaning over the summer. Just to highlight a few, we are doing full roof at McDonald Elementary, along with some window repair from removing our air conditioning units. Shaker windows, shaker units there are coming out, but that we need to repair the windows as well when they come out. So also the big air conditioning project at Moscow Middle School is going to be getting off as soon as students are out. And we're also doing another roofing project at Bear Field underneath our bleacher storage. So we've got a company coming from Lewiston to help with that. Otherwise, we've got some room modifications at West Park and kind of flooring and some painting kind of throughout the district. So another big thing is we are switching over our work order system and tracking, which will be much easier for our work orders coming in, and then there's been kind of some issues with our past one of kind of staying in communication on how those work orders are progressing, and this one is super user friendly, and anytime we open it up or make any modifications, the person who's requested that work order will get an email So almost too many emails. So we'll see where we're going. Because with that, moving on to our tech department, we've already launched the same program with our tech work orders, and it's off and running. But also with part of this is we're going to this work order system with tech. We are going around all summer and barcoding every device throughout the district, so then we know how many times that particular device has been worked on, and if there's any issues by building, just a variety of different ways we can track that information with our technology. Quick ones, food service, our summer feeding set. We have Vanderbilt athletes coming out that first opening barbecue on Monday, June 9th, and we're gonna make it as big of an event as we can. Transportation, running very smooth. I am confident we can say that we did not cancel a single trip this year, which is huge from the first time I got here, and we had shortages. So big kudos to Tony and Jim, but not just that. With the way our model goes, we've got drivers that are taking these on during the day, during the evening, getting back late at night. So just a huge shout out to all of our drivers as well too. So, and that's my report.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work, Butch. A lot of good things. The work orders that he talked about, just to make sure you understand with McDonald, we did kind of have an audit of all of our roofs around the district, and really the decision was made, we kind of shifted around a little bit in our 10-year plan, but after a final conversation, really kind of trying to dig and say, what do we need to do right now? The conversation around we've put a lot of money into McDonald Elementary, which sometimes is like, well, that's our newest one. Like, we really want to make it last. And the conversation around that roof was, with the type of roof it was, we had a very small window to where we would start doing damage to the building if we didn't do something, and actually a complete roof replacement. And so that was kind of focused the decision to say, like, we don't want to have to do a complete roof replacement. If we address it right now, which is kind of resealing and they put the gravel or whatever it is that surface that goes on there, like, we got another 25 years of life out of it, and you're not putting on a brand new roof. So we think that is the most effective use of our funds right now. I know we have some other roofs with some other challenges. One of them is the high school annex. But it is already at a point where we're going to put it on a plan with a roofing company to just kind of continue to monitor and work with, and then get us to a point where we can replace it completely, if that's what we want to do. The other thing with McDonald is when they did put in those donated air conditioners, they cut the aluminum in the window frame, and so that was part of this solution. Is like, now we have the whole HVAC system, but then for this whole year we had these big window shaker units that were just sitting there kind of dead, not useful. So it's really kind of at the end of life, although some we may repurpose a little, we'll see, depending on condition. And so, like, just kind of sitting there ugly and wanting to really clean up and finish up that project so we don't have those things hanging there. That, and the window company we worked with came up with a solution. And so it's gonna make the building look and feel better and do it the right way, and there'll be openable windows again. We also didn't keep any of the old windows or anything else like that, so kudos to kind of tackling that. And just overall, I just want to give Butch a shout out. Like, we've gotten a lot of things moving now between the air conditioning projects, the work with the roofing and kind of getting us some answers. When I came in, we didn't know about this structure under the bleachers. We didn't have a solution. We went for a while, like, trying to find people, Butch coming to me kind of disappointed, and we finally found somebody that really has come up with a good solution and very cost-effective solution. And that's because of his tenacity and willingness to kind of really reach out and try and find solutions. Another one that's still been kind of a thorn in our side, I didn't know if I'd bring it up, is our bare bleachers in Bear Den. Have really been hard to manage and take care of, and we're really trying to change that. I think Steven as well, our new hire, has done a great job, but I think we've got a plan there to make those things last a longer than what maybe when I came here 2 years ago was the anticipation, so that we don't have to spend $500,000 replacing them. But that's gonna be a cost as well to kind of get them back into the shape we need to make them last for another decade or what we wanna do. So, but great work. And then the work order thing is a really cool, like, it probably is, it's just kind of a quick note for Butch, but we were all over the place when it came to tech. It was like the Wild West. When I came here 2 years ago, like every building kind of had its own thing, and we've kind of unified that budget to kind of tighten it up and be more effective with our use of tech funds and what we're actually doing as a whole district. And now this is kind of that next step, is to tying all the tech piece together and making sure that we understand what we're doing, that we're tracking it appropriately, and that we know what devices we have, why they have them. And so kind of bringing that together. And then just overall for work orders too. We came into messages of like we lacked some accountability, and you know, when a work order got submitted, it just went off into the clouds. And I think board members had heard some of that before in Harmony or other things. And this is, I mean, like he said, it probably over emails you, but I practiced submitting a little work order on my charger on my laptop that wasn't working, and you know, it's quick responses. It's easy to see what the workflow is, who got assigned the work, when they anticipate to fix it. And so I think that's making a big change and like super cost effective solution. So
one quick question about that. I remember one concern was who has permission or access to submitting them. Like, you know, if somebody has a burned out light bulb versus a completely broken window, or
So we've gone with still principals reporting or their secretaries primarily. One of the differences is what was happening is only principals could report, and then there was nothing to connect the teacher in the room. And so now with this system, you can have the principal report it, but also tag in the teacher so that the teacher, or oftentimes it's not always the principal. Sometimes it's their secretary or the office secretary that does the reporting. But then now that staff member is included, so they get to see all that. And we rolled around, there's different models to have the teacher report, but at the end of the day, I think our principals would like to have some oversight over what continues to flow in. Tech's a little different. Tech has a different reporting process than that, but
Okay.
Yep. Okay. The last one is me. I wanted to make sure I recognize Jen for her award. I do want to spend just a little bit of time going over ISAT, so I'm going to try and pull up my stuff, because I do think, well, our results aren't finalized. I just wanted to let me log in here. If I can unfreeze this. So these are basically close, not 100%, but close at about 1.1, or a little over 1,000 kids that have tested. And so we anticipate this not to change a whole lot. Science would be about in the 65% proficient advanced range. English language arts, which has traditionally been our higher performing, and also like statewide is higher performing, is in about the 72% range as far as proficient advanced. We have a very high amount of advanced. And then mathematics also in grades 3 through 8 and 11 is running about 62% here. I want to show you the math just to kind of to put it in perspective. I mean, obviously we would want 100% of our kids to pass the ISAT, but these are all kids, right? So from kids on IEPs to our highest performing to those on, you know, free and reduced lunch, or from challenging family situations, those that move into our district. And as you can see, here are our percentages. And I thought it's kind of, so like on each of these you can pull up, so like 8th grade math, for a comparison, you can see where the state ends up on 8th grade math, which is 40% of kids in the state are going to be either proficient or advanced. 40% of Moscow kids are advanced and performing very highly. 24% proficient, and then we still have those. So that's 8th grade math. 7th grade math is another great highlight for us. So in 7th grade math, you can see the overall state proficiency hovers around 43%. And 4 in 10 kids, 4 in 10 kids in our district right now in 7th grade are scoring advanced on the math ISAT. That is high, especially when these are kind of normed test. Like it is a little bit of we are like woebegone maybe. Everybody is above average, right? So very impressive and very impressive to kind of see the growth. You can see that goes across the board. Grade 3 math is 73% for us compared to a state average of 50%. Overall, grade 5 math is 58%. It's like I said, it's probably our lowest performing class, but again, 42% around the state. And again, almost all the tests are in. Grade 6 math, again, compared to the state, we're at 64% and 41% for a state. And the 11th grade math is really the concern, and it's something that we are focused on. I think in our continuous improvement plan, we're looking at it. We still exceed the state average. We'll end up right at 40%. The state is at 31%. But we're still seeing that dip. And so we still want to kind of address that. There's lots of ideas. We're running through some data right now at the high school level, like really looking at what course kids are in when they're taking this ISAT, how our advanced kids are doing, how our kids that are behind are doing, who are the kids that are dropping out of this kind of proficient realm. Like I said, probably 2 or 3 years ago, you saw us starting to drop in the middle school. So I am really hoping that the changes that are happening in the middle school will begin to impact math. It's a complicated story, I think, with math. And we're fighting like really what is just a nationwide average as far as high school math performance, or we're a part of that. We're trying to buck that trend, is what I would say.
One of the things that's been talked about with 11th grade ISATs is that it's not like the PSATs or SATs or there's some kind of thing, because they're not being graded on it like in the school, so it doesn't impact their grade. It doesn't necessarily impact their going to college. And was talked about that, are they taking it as seriously as they should, or are they just going through it? Because it, to some of the students, it's like, who cares?
I do think that is part of the story, is that like it's that who cares. And 11th graders do have a lot of testing fatigue. I mean, if they're not taking the SAT or the ACT, they're to try and get to the college that they want to go to. And I would say, and that there's an argument there, and that our SAT and ACT data, which I don't have pulled up here tonight, it does not necessarily match this drop. Although not every kid is taking that too. So there's like there is some conflicting data there, or the ASVAB or the PSAT at the beginning of the year for 11th graders. So there's just a lot of tests for 11th graders, and ISAT's just part of that noise. There's a little bit of data that tells me though that I don't think that's all of the story, because when I get to ELA, you'll see that our high school English language arts actually continues to kind of that trend. Like statewide, you also see a drop in the ELA, although it's not as pronounced as math. We do buck that trend with ELA in our high school. And our ELA exams are actually, continuing to grow at overall proficiency levels. The other thing that I thought was kind of interesting if you look at so say this grade 7 math, you can see that our average ISAT score was at 2606. That's a mean score. If you look at the state average for an 8th grader, that averages a 2553 on an ISAT score. And in 11th grade, an average ISAT score at the state level is a 2564. So our 7th graders are scoring higher. It's a 7th grade test, but there's continued to be that point-wise than an average 11th grader. So we're seeing good growth where we want to see good growth. That's math. I'll show you just a little bit of English language arts. Just want to show you and highlight a couple of things. One, I want to drill in really quick to the 11th grade, because I want to give Paradise Creek a shout out. We've had a teacher there now, and 63%, and I know these numbers are small, but 63% of our Paradise Creek Regional Alternative Schools scored advanced on the ISAT. Very impressive performance. Going back to the math thing, there was one other thing. The thing about English is everybody's a junior in English 3. In math, we do have kids all over the place. When I graph it out where we're at, we have kids from really still getting really what I would call pre-algebra at their junior level. We're really trying to focus on remediating them math-wise. And then we have a few kids that are taking linear algebra, like advanced differential equations. Like we have kids up there, not very many. A lot of our kids are in this pre-calc to calc range as juniors. Not a majority, but a good chunk, relatively high, especially for our size. And so that, it makes it more difficult too. Because even, I'm a mathematician and I'm like, well, if you're in calculus, you should still be able to go back and do, algebra 2 things. But there is something to that a little bit. Like these are topics that are very specific to like 8th grade algebra 2 expectations, and maybe it's not as fresh in your mind, and maybe you are working on more advanced math. We still see our advanced math kids performing well on this test. But so just giving a shout out for ELA overall. Going back to just ELA here, you can see in 5th grade, we run so that's about 72% proficient, 39% advanced compared to the state, which is gonna run, again, the state runs higher in ELA, just like nationally, on the SAT as well, that's mapped out, but you're over 50%. So we run about 20 percentage points higher, 15 to 20 percentage points higher at every grade level. And the 7th graders here are also, they're very good academic class. There's signs that it's not just math, in this 77% range as far as proficient. So that's virtually, 8 in 10 kids that are proficient. And so this is really great. And I am hoping over the summer to really kind of share this message out to people to show that there are really great things and we continue to grow in that growth. Let me go back one more time because I play around with this late at night a lot. If
I
you
wonder
look at
if you'd like a condensed version of
Yeah,
the farmer's
yeah.
market.
Yeah, that's right. Like putting something out like that.
Although they still like looking at kids.
So this is that 7th grade group that we're talking about, and this is like a superintendent's dream, right? Like, so this is a high academic performing group, but you see here, like this is just continuous and steady growth on the ISAT. So we're not seeing dips at grade levels. This is from the time they were 3rd graders, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21. We're coming out of COVID. Here's a starting point for them, right? You guys are back in school at that point in that, and then we just continue to see this growth, right? Those are the kind of things that I'm looking for. Very impressive. Okay. I think that's what I have for ISAT. It was what I had for ISAT. I got one other. I just wanted to share really quick. We do have ISIP or iStation reading. This is at all grade levels. Wanted to show you generally. Lena Whitmore does a little bit different model as far as testing. They do not test kids on the ISIP reading every month. They actually take some breaks, like you can see this December month is low, and they don't test every kid as we go through it. When I say they don't test every kid, they test the ones that are required to test, the K through 3 on the ISIP for reading, but they don't test like the 4th and 5th graders, and then this data includes all of those students when we get to May. But generally speaking, like when we get to this all students, again, you see this growth in this proficiency level, and we're shrinking down those tier 3, 1, and 2. This is 86% proficient on that, on the IRI reading test, the ISIP, which will again far exceed kind of that state average. Great growth for Lena Whitmore. West Park starts a little bit lower. We have a lot more English as a second language learners. But again, we see growth from 63% up to eventually 73% proficient at West Park on the ISIP. And then McDonald Elementary, which starts at 73 and then ended the year at 84% proficient. We have a couple of kindergarten classes at McDonald that have 0 kids in tier 3. Like, so they have actually like nearly 100% proficiency. So very, very impressive results from really all 3 schools when it comes to reading results as well. So I just wanted to share that. Couple other things. Let's see. Hopefully you got a little note from Ken about Angie's retirement party. It's not necessarily a surprise, I know Angie knows about it, but I only get 2 more chances to embarrass Angie in her retirement, and this is one of them, and I can't think of a better person to come into in my job. Now almost 2 years ago, someone who's been such a great help for me in the work that she does and has made such a big difference in the district. We were actually interviewing for a position today, and I know all the advice is don't have board members on the interview committee, so I'm following that advice. But it is really kind of like one employee I'm thinking with the interviews, like that really is kind of like I'm your employee, they always say, and the rest of the staff is kind of like the district or my employees. The board clerk is kind of your best buddies too, and can helps us out through a lot of things. So just appreciate you. I'll get one more chance to embarrass you in June, see if I can make you cry. But
in a good way.
Yeah, that's right. In a good way. But so, anyways, just make note of that, and thank you, Angie, for your work and all that you've done. Moscow High School and Paradise Creek High School graduation ceremonies. I told those principals that I would ask you guys if you are planning to attend or let me know. Paradise Creek is next Wednesday at 7. Yeah, that's right.
And
getting the times mixed up. But,
and we got the email from Brian.
Okay. Yep. And then and Moscow High School's one is on Friday.
And I did get an email from Jen Wilson wanting to know which of you will be up on the stage.
Yes.
For graduation. Ken?
Yeah, so unfortunately my granddaughter's 3rd year birthday will be then, so I won't be at the MHS one, but I will be at
Paradise
Creek, unfortunately.
Yeah, I am out of town next week, unfortunately.
Okay.
I have another obligation on Friday. Sorry,
So I'm
but I
gonna have
won't
to
be.
I'm gonna have to hand them all out.
I could
Do some
hand out
push-ups.
with you. My son's graduating, so I wouldn't mind.
Because Brian is not here, so.
Yeah, 'cause I know Brian
Yeah, I
will
don't think
be
he could do a Croatia, so.
Okay, so just one. We'll just
Okay,
need
so
one.
just
Okay.
one, I'll tell him.
So yeah, you can.
And then I don't mind helping hand out.
I'll give you the
I'm there.
last half so that you.
I got to hug my daughter last year and a fun photo, and so it'll be fun to hand one to my son as well. So. Okay, and then just recognition was the last piece that I have on here of our retirees, our 2025, the MEA Teacher of the Year banquet happened earlier a couple of weeks ago, but recognizing 7 outstanding employees in our district that are retiring. Paula Pancari started here, or Patty Pancari started in 1994. Retiring now in 2025 has been our Title I teacher at McDonald Elementary. That's at least her final role. She's done other roles. Paula Carr, who's been here since 2016, the Title I teacher at Lena Whitmore Elementary. Big loss for our district. Those are 2 strong teachers that have made a big difference in those reading scores. But we've got good people waiting in the wings, ready to go. Tom Garrett, longtime music instructor, 1996 to 2025. People stick around this district. It's a good sign. He will be sorely missed. Saw a picture of him as a student teacher with Mr. Dale Kleiner. So kind of a cool picture. Tom's heading off into retirement. And then a couple of a few classified retirees. Mitch Peterson is was a custodian at the middle school. He actually retired at the beginning of the year, January or December. Molly Hirschbill, who was selected as the Education Support Personnel of the Year for the Idaho Education Association, is retiring again. She's the one with the longest tenure, 1991. Really, Molly was one of the first people I met when I moved here to the district a couple of Julys ago. I reached out to principals and said, who's the classified staff that I can, as we were kind of tackling like hiring more paras, that I need to talk to, and Molly's was the very first name, and so I brought her in and had a conversation with your wonderful lady. Vicki Brandner at McDonald Elementary, the voice that if you ever call McDonald on the phone, that southern accent, is heading off into retirement. Happy to celebrate with her, and then Angie as well in the district office. So congratulations to those employees. They really are valued and will be missed. That is my report.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, moving on to information item D, continuing the discussion on facilities. I don't know if there's more you want to talk about.
So I thought I'd share overall, I had kind of sent out an email about saving a date for June 11th. After kind of consulting with, NIT has been working on some work around high school, middle school, and really when we first met with them and talked about a direction, we had talked about let's look at what it would look like to be a shared campus between the high school and the middle school. So really like a 7-12 campus, and considering that we own Euler, is that a possibility? And they did some of that work, and I think in that work we've had some more conversations about some other things. I guess I would say I know I've brought up before, what about a high school, middle school swap, right? And so we're kind of exploring some of those things. What I'd like to do with their continued work is, and I think to help guide the board moving forward at this point, we've had that look at Russell. So we've made some investments to kind of be able to understand the big picture of things. We've taken a look at Russell. We've taken a look at this. We have really a vision of what a new elementary would be like. And now we're going to have a picture of maybe what a high school, middle school solution is that's reasonable, is to form a committee of, I love committees because we're in education. We've got a good list started, I think, of good people, and I don't want yes men, or we want a good sample, or yes women, of people that are going to help us kind of tackle some of these issues, and really kind of so that I can lay out for the board. I mean, I'm thinking over the summer that we meet, review all of these things, maybe bring these same architects in to talk about it, so that we can have something more polished and kind of a direction for the board, knowing that we've had, and a fairly large group. I think I told you up to 40 people. That's a big group to get together. I know summertime's gonna reduce attendance sometimes, but kind of making it so that no one person has to be at every meeting, other than maybe me or Butch. And then really kind of coming with a direction. The goal is to get us to a place where instead of ignoring facilities, we have a plan, even maybe longer than a 10-year plan, of how we're going to take care of the existing old buildings that we have, in conjunction with thinking about the future and making an investment in the future with what we're doing. We've talked about a lot of the challenges. We know Russell was a really old building that has some real challenges with where it's at. We know that West Park is simply not big enough in its current format to hold the kids that we want to have there, now that we've gone from 4 to 3 elementaries. So we know some of those things. We know Paradise Creek Regional High School is not in a permanent home. And we've relied on the good graces of the Whites family to donate that to us, but now we know there's gonna be a cost to that. Kind of moving forward if we lease it, as we're trying to find a solution for that. And so we know a lot of those things. We know the high school, right, is built in the 1930s. So it's got a lot of struggles, that building. And so we know we need to find those solutions. I believe with an elementary that given some state funding for facilities, and some ongoing state funding for facilities with the way they've structured it, that there's a possibility that we could do something elementary-wise that would not, we could do something elementary-wise without going to taxpayers for a bond, is what I would say. It could take some time. We may still have to go to taxpayers. I mean, there's a possibility we could do something without going to taxpayers, depending on the level of risk that the board would want to take and feel comfortable with. And so maybe that's threading a bit of a needle, but can we do those things? I know a lot of people have asked me well, what about the high school first? That's the need. That's what people want to talk about. That's where everybody goes. One of my biggest concerns with tackling the high school first has always been, we're already relatively high taxed school. We support our schools. That's why we get some of the results that we get. People want to support our public schools, but that means our tax rate's relatively high. So how do we get the most out of that? And if we do run a bond, that locks us up financially for a long time. And so these other challenges that we have, maybe you run a bond and pass it, I watch these things like the election on Tuesday, 0 bonds passed. There is no other state, I don't know if you saw the Idaho Ed News article about the threshold and read it, but there's one other state in the union that has such a high threshold to pass a bond. And they have, I didn't know how it all works, but they have that nickel tax, I don't know if you read it, but basically in Kentucky, which has a 2/3, the board can impose a facilities tax without any, so that they can do some things like this. Their bond is 2/3, but they also have this ability to just impose a facilities tax. And so we don't have that, we don't have anything. We have a 2/3, which is a super high bar, and the vast majority of bonds in the state of Idaho don't pass. And even in the article it mentioned, a lot of people aren't running them at this point because there's, you don't want that as a scar on your, superintendent or board legacy, because they are so, it's such a difficult environment to pass a bond. So
And high school's gonna cost a whole lot more than an elementary school.
Yeah, absolutely, a lot more. So, my thinking has always been, we focus on an elementary long-term solution, and we start working towards something that we can really sell to people as a good idea as far as the high school, and so we don't get locked up. But I think our facilities group can kind of continue to tackle that. I really appreciate the work that Lombard Conrad has done in providing that picture of a vision. It's the best work I've seen of, you can imagine going to school there and walking into those doors, and you can imagine what that would look like out there. Just a really beautiful place, and giving us something to kind of move forward. And then see, putting together a package of how would we fund it. I know that the city's probably anxious to kind of move forward. Bill talked a little bit on our joint meeting about what the next steps are. I think eventually we get to a point, if the school board wanted to do that we would be moving forward with some sort of MOU to say this is how we're gonna develop it together, and this is what.
And then we'd have our own attorney?
Yes, yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Good. Just like the Joseph, the playfields.
And we could always get an extra if we needed to for another set of ice, yeah. So that's the facilities, and then along with facilities is just taking care of what we have, which is the other part. So you do all these things and you bond for 25 years on a long high school project or whatever, and you're gonna have Lena Whitmore in 25 years. Lena Whitmore will be over 100 years old. So if we haven't done those, really, I've talked about it before, in a district our size, we should probably be talking about a large scale project, whether that's a whole new build or a fairly large renovation, every 20 to 25 years. And the last major one we did was, I don't even know, maybe you could say the high school in 1990, when an annex was kind of revitalized. So that's 35 years ago, but that was kind of just one little annex piece. As far as a school build was McDonald Elementary. In more than 50 years ago, almost 60 years ago.
Yeah, it's about 60 now.
So to just clarify the process that you're thinking of, Sean, you're saying that you want to bring together a group of stakeholders to have conversations through the summer about all of these ideas that you just talked to us about, with the idea that then you create something that you bring back to the board. I guess I'm wondering, where is the opportunity for our input, knowing that we cannot have these conversations outside of a public meeting? I guess I feel a lot I hear ideas and then I'm oh, I would like to, okay.
It is hard because everything you guys do. A couple of ideas is we could have a couple of board members participate in that as available, and keep it at 2 so there's not a quorum, and just post it. And when you do that, when you do that, it's okay. I'm not trying to keep anybody out the door, but when you do, it becomes public meeting. So as you're there and you're talking about school business, but there's not enough of you to vote on anything, so we just post it as a non-quorum, but we're talking about school business. People can come, and we would unlock the door, and it would be technically a public meeting how we do it. So, there's a possibility when you do that, I might have my idea of a group of 40, but other people could show up. So there's that. I'm not afraid of that, if people wanted to come. and had ideas, I mean, we would have a structure and a format. It wouldn't just be everybody yelling out ideas. So that would be one way to help the board engage with some of this, if you guys are interested. I think Dawn is listed as the member of the facilities committee. We haven't really had a facilities meeting yet, but I think you appointed at the beginning of the year, so. But I think that would be a good way for the board to engage with it.
Maybe nobody else on the board wants to participate, but I feel like
Even if it's one, I'm happy to have you, you know. We would just, we would post it knowing that there's board member talking about school business, so.
Well, I'd like to congratulate you and your administration on getting this going, because for a long time we've been kind of stuck in neutral, partly because it just seems so insurmountable. And you've really come up with what looks like a path.
Yeah.
Potentially a path.
Yeah, potentially.
Several paths.
You know, the one I do, Butch and I sit down sometimes and I'm like, what about the high school thing? Because I do think I want to be able to make sure that we answer that solidly with at least a good sampling of the community to say, you know, let me put my argument out almost as a test group, right? To say, you know, go ahead, shoot some holes in it. Maybe, because I think there will be some pushback originally, like, why aren't you just doing the high school thing? Why don't you just run a bond that is very difficult to pass? And just do the high school thing, because that's what we all can see and that's what we all want. And so being able to answer that and make sure we've tested that out and have a group that says, no, this path makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to our first discussion item, the ISBA resolutions, because it's time for that again. And Sean and I were talking about one possible resolution, and you may be aware that there was a bill in the legislature and it did not get through committee and pass, but it would have greatly impacted the ability to have a continuous levy like we do. They would lengthen the levy periods, but it would also erase our continuous levy and that ability. I mean, it would lock us in.
If we ran an
If we
increase.
ran again, a new one, then it would, it would mess it up. And so we were talking about putting together a resolution, and we can talk to a couple of the other districts that are in the same boat that we are, for the ISBA, that if they push for a resolution to increase the levy length, that it would not hurt the continuous levies that are in place right now. That would be the exception, or be written into the law that we're grandfathered in on that. Because if we did not have the continuous levy, we'd be in a whole lot of trouble.
Then we'd have to be passing it every 2 years.
Yeah.
So I got the impression that not many districts have continuing.
6.
So we're gonna have trouble getting a lot of support on this.
Yeah, there were some districts up north that felt like it was a trade-off. I mean, really, the ISBA work that they did on the legislation last year that they ended up supporting came from Coeur d'Alene and a couple other districts up there, but I think Coeur d'Alene led the charge because they felt that the trade-off of being able to run a 6-year levy instead of right now you're limited to a 2-year levy was worth that sacrifice because so few districts have one. It would say like we're not opposed to allowing for a 6-year levy, like that could be a good solution to prevent new ones or whatever else they want to do, or if a district felt like they couldn't pass an ongoing one, that they could do it that way as a 6, but that they wouldn't support something that is ongoing, or that they wouldn't support something if it cut out the ongoing possibility.
Eliminate is what we have.
So it would kind of, if that resolution were to pass, again, it might be hard to get enough support, like we don't have a lot of districts that it impacts, but if it were to pass, then the ISBA could only support something that didn't do that, I guess.
Well, then it's gonna be even harder to get it passed by the legislature, so I'm pretty sure they're not gonna have much interest in that. But I'm a pessimist, so.
I've made Quinn aware that we're at least having this conversation. Sure. Cause that's what I would do. So she knows that.
Yeah, it's worth it.
They're always willing to help. I have not reached out to the other districts because I thought we'd just kind of.
A lot of districts would love a continuous levy. And so it's not like off the plate that they would not try for it. But if a law like the one that was proposed passed, it's off the table completely.
Yeah.
No, you'll never have one. So.
A counter thought would be that it just makes you a target too, to kind of put something out like that publicly. But this is ISBA guidance to say,
Sure.
like, this is what we think the ISBA should support. They shouldn't be supporting something that actually hurts member schools. So, if you want to, just to kind of move the conversation forward, I can reach out to the other schools, I could put together a draft of something. I think it's probably a July 1 deadline, I'm trying to remember, sometimes there's
That's always a little soft, but.
So, but
End-
we would
end of
definitely have to have
July.
something in
Well-
front of you at this June board meeting, and then you could make a few little
Yeah,
edits.
because Quinn has already sent me
Oh, that's right.
an email.
Yeah, like,
to
what's the
say-
deadline there? Is it, normally it's like July 1 or something.
Yeah.
The normal deadline's July 31, but she's
Oh.
gonna be gone during July.
Oh, okay.
I
I
think
guess
that's the issue.
I might have missed it.
Yeah, you was still until July 31.
Okay.
So the deadline is still the 31st of July.
But we might as well get going on it.
Okay, I'll reach out to some other districts.
Are there any others?
Yeah,
I mean, we
yeah,
have
that's
some
true.
ongoing ones that they're still pushing that we had,
I guess
supported
maybe we
last
should
time.
look at what's expiring.
Yeah, that I haven't done yet. Yeah, so
Maybe
I'll
you
have to
could
look at that.
assign that as homework next June.
Yeah, because we can look at which ones are expiring that we might want to continue, but that I did not do before this meeting, so. Okay, anything else on that one? Get the details on that. Okay, moving on to the accreditation engagement review report.
All right, so I included it in there. I don't know that it just came in last week. I wanted to make sure I got it to you and read it. To be honest with you, Carrie has gone through it. Carrie Brooks, our curriculum director, and has kind of flagged some things for me in this end of year season. Lots going on. I have not had the time to sit down and read it. I've hit her little flagged notes. I don't think there's anything surprising in there. I think overall our accreditation report ends up at a very high, like they kind of give it a numeric value, so we're on the very high end of that, which is good news for our district. I know the report when they left town after accreditation earlier this spring was a really good one. So I think they identified 3 of the, I'm trying to think if that's right, 3 domains or 4 where they marked us as kind of needing some improvement. So those are gonna be the things that as we build our strategic plan, that we will want to highlight and focus on. I'm hoping to, at a future board meeting, kind of give a little bit more in-depth report, but I encourage you to read through it.
Yeah, we have two areas of
Yep, 2.
for improvement.
So anyways, if you have questions about it right now, I'm fine. Otherwise, we'll just kind of leave it as a report, as a written report there, and move on to the next.
Questions or comments on it? Okay. All right, moving on to the first reading of section 6, Digital Learning Academy.
Most of these edits were suggested by the counselors, is that right? Wes Andrews and the counselors. Just kind of an update to our Idaho Digital Learning policy for the Idaho Digital Learning Academy. You see the changes there in red line, just around IDLA. Designates, instead of the superintendent designating the site coordinator, it would change to the principal. A little bit around tuition and fees. Full refunds will be granted if a student drops the class within the established drop window. Current policy said 1 week, but really it just depends on the course that we would refund them for. Mostly, all of this is mostly just cleanup of existing practices and protocols with IDLA. We do, one little note about IDLA, you can now take the IDLA driver's ed course even if you're homeschooled. In the past, IDLA courses, IDLA is not a standalone like charter school or something like that. It really only functions through a public school. And so IDLA is really just a supplement or an add-on to a public school, which meant that homeschool kids can't really access IDLA unless they enroll at a public school somewhere. There are other homeschool options or charter schools or things like that that have kind of classes online like IDLA, but IDLA has always been built as this digital learning academy that's a supplement to public schools. Where that it kind of came into conflict last year when the legislation passed around driver's education and said that you had to take a driver's education course to do this parent as instructor model, which is now allowable in Idaho. And so so homeschool kids couldn't register for IDLA because they didn't have a public school. So that was kind of taxing us a little bit, and that they had to go through our counselors to get register. Did they have to register with the high school? Anyways, IDLA came up with a process where now our counselors can just kind of refer them and they can self-register, and it takes a lot of the work burden off if you're choosing to homeschool your kid, and you can still access the IDLA driver's ed course. So.
But just that one course.
Yeah. It was always built as not as a true charter is kind of in some ways a competition, right? You're pulling funding from a kid from a certain school and putting it in another school when you have a charter like that. IDLA has any IDLA courses they take do not impact our ADA. So we get full funding for the student, and IDLA is funded separately by the legislature. So it was always intended to not be a competitive model. It was just a supplement to what public schools can offer.
Right, any other questions or comments on it? Okay, moving on to the first reading of board policy on charter schools.
So a lot of red line here. A couple of charter school things to talk about. I'm in close conversations with Tony. Our charter policy had not been updated since, this is like the last section Angie really wants to get going on. Since I think the policy was originally put in place in 2001, probably right around the same time that Moscow Charter became chartered by us, maybe a little after that, so maybe there was something before, and then updated once in 2009, you can see some 2000, there's a few 2008s is what I was saying. But generally, like, when Angie started going through it, she's like, the Idaho code that they reference doesn't even exist. The rule that they reference doesn't even exist. So much has changed in that 25 years. We now have a charter commission. Most charter schools would charter through the commission now. The old, when they originally passed the charter law in 2000, it had to be a university or a K-12 school. Like, those were the only options. And so nowadays, there's really not, unless it's like a specific carve out that will benefit the school district, there aren't school districts that are chartering new schools. If somebody wants to set up a charter, they go to the commission. That's what it's set up for. So all of this about setting up a charter, etc., in my mind, if someone came to me and said, I would like to start a charter in Moscow, one, I would tell them, we've got plenty. That's just me. Let me tell you about our amazing ISAT scores. But if they wanted to start a charter, I would tell them, the charter commissioner is really the best path. They have the best people to charter you, to help support you. We don't have that as a school district. We do have one charter under us, that's Moscow Charter. Palouse Prairie is under the Charter Commission. So this would basically strip out that language. I am in contact with the Charter Commission and Bloom. We have a great relationship with Tony, Leslie, and their board at Moscow Charter about getting an updated policy. I called the ISBA. They don't even have policy. They don't even have a model policy anymore for us to go off of because districts aren't chartering. There's a couple other districts I'm trying to track down in June, which are a little tough, like Twin Falls and some others that do have that charter their own, to see what they have for policy. But basically, I don't think we need anything about adding adding a new charter. And we're gonna come back with some language about, managing the charter that we have. But for now, the stuff that I asked Angie to delete, I don't think is any benefit to us and is so woefully out of date. It really doesn't, we couldn't follow our policy if we wanted to. So we are working on improving our charter policy. This stuff is unnecessary right now. The other thing that I'm just as I talk about charter policy, visiting with Tony about right now, when we originally chartered their charter, which is approved by the Moscow School District Board, says that we are connected as an LEA at the federal level. So in terms of things like English language learners, Title I potentially, the big one is special education. We are actually considered a single entity. And so often, and so that happens with our test scores accountability too. Moscow Charter kind of gets lumped in. Even though they're their own organization, they have their own board. Because our charter currently says we're a single federal LEA, that we're connected. Where that gives me concern is really in the special education realm. Because really the way our charter is written is we are responsible for the special education things that happen in the Moscow Charter building. I have zero concerns right now that anything bad is happening there. I think they're doing a wonderful job with the kids. Like I said, we have a great relationship with them. But at the end of the day, if we were to get in trouble with something federally special education, they would be a part of any guidance or mandates brought down by the federal government, and they would have to meet those things. And vice versa is also true. If something were to happen in their program, everywhere, Lena Whitmore, the high school, would be subject to those federal, guidance and restrictions. And so I really think as we're operating as separate entities, and we have a special education director that is at full capacity, I don't want to have to put onto her really. And so I'd like to separate that out. I'd like to separate out our test scores. I would like to separate out and just, we can still continue to charter them. There's nothing that says we can't. And I think we're fine with that. I don't have any concerns with that. But that we would just separate as far as federally. That would take a change to the charter. I've asked the Charter Commission and the State Department of Education what the timeline is on that. They would need board action by February of 2026 to be able to separate us as an LEA in July of 2026 is when that would happen. And again, we'd keep our charter with them, we'd keep our great relationship. It would just be moving through that process. Both boards would have to agree to amend the charter. And I've talked with Tony about it at this point. I have not gotten feedback from his board. I'd be happy to go to their board meeting and kind of present to when we're ready to go. But with your guys' blessing, I'd like to kind of approve or begin to go down that path as far as separating our LEA federally.
Yeah, at the ISBA conference last year, this was brought up in one of the panels, and most of the school districts that have a charter school under them are separate.
Yeah.
They're all, so they were, the others were kind of amazed that we're not. So.
We're the very first one, we didn't know any better.
So.
West Ada has a few that they charter. Twin Falls, I know, has a few that are chartered. Sometimes they're specialty charters, I think the West Ada, that Renaissance kind of career technical one is a charter, but underneath the West Ada district, I think. Don't quote me.
So alternatively, rather than rewrite the charter to separate, to solve this one problem, why not just ask them to charter under the commission?
We could.
It wouldn't be any benefit to us to be overseeing them, authorizing them every year, looking at their audit. So I think that's worth thinking about.
I think it's worth thinking about too. I do. I don't want to bring it up as a conversation like we want to kick you out, kick the bugs out, just because they've been good. But I think given the structures that we have nowadays, ultimately, if you want to talk about accountability for them and support for them, the charter commission every day is gonna have better support structures. They have staff members that do the charter thing all the time. We have, we've got our jobs to do, and then we're gonna kind of ask to authorize them, so I think that's worth bringing up.
And I guess as long as it doesn't prevent them from taking advantage of some of the things we offer or using our busing
Yeah.
or whatever, whatever we currently do.
Yep.
So if it doesn't super negatively impact them, it just seems cleaner.
I mean, if we were to get grumpy at some point and say, that's it, we're done with you guys, it would take them a month to go to the charter commission and be chartered there. So it's not like, there's just not, and yes, Palouse Prairie is chartered under the commission and we share food services with them and we share busing with them.
Yeah.
So it would not impact them in any way. It's worthy bringing up. I just want to be good neighbors. They're good.
We'll see what Tony and the
partners.
board think about it.
Yeah. Just kind of giving you an overall timeline, I think we would head towards some sort of a resolution, however we were going, by February.
Anything else?
Well, in parts 6327, you talk about it's going to be every 5 years instead of every year now. But does that include the audit, or is the audit still annual?
Which one?
6327.
So 6327 is a great example. There is no actual, by state law, doesn't allow for a performance certificate every 5 years. They just changed it to every 6 years. Yes, we do get an annual report, an annual audit, an annual report. They submit the audit and their scores. But as far as their performance certificate, which we did just do, and we did for 5 years when we really, by state law, should have done for 6 years. So we just did that the last cycle was the actual performance certificate cycle.
Okay, we need to make that more clear in that section of the policy, because introducing it, it says that they submit a report every 5 years. And then down in item D, it says, due to the district by October 15th of the 5th year. Or we need to state in the introduction that the accountability part is every 5 years and the audit part is every year.
Well,
I don't know, it just needs to be more clear.
And A says annual programmatic audit.
Say that again, Jim.
A under 6327 mentions the annual programmatic
right, it
audit.
does.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're mixing something that's every 5 years with something that's going to continue
I think
every
it should
year.
be still annually
So
submitted.
that may need a little revision.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's also confusion whether it's Charter Schools Commission or Charter School Commission, whether school has an S on it or not.
It doesn't have an, it's,
I've seen it both ways
Yeah.
throughout this.
okay.
Okay. And then in 6340,
No S. Just to put out an S.
in the beginning, it says, if the board has reason to believe that the public charter school has done any of the following, and we're taking out the following things. So that needs to be,
Okay.
maybe say, has not adhered to its
Charter.
contract.
It's charter.
Or its charter, yeah, charter contract. That would solve that. That's all. You're so good at that.
Okay. Great.
Okay. All right. We'll move on to our first action item, second reading on drug-free workplace policy.
This just really brings the drug-free, we talked about this at the last board meeting, so this is a second reading. It brings our classified drug-free workplace policy in line with the certified drug-free workplace policy. Kind of updates it and unifies the language.
Right.
I will move that the Board of Trustees of Moscow School District Number 281 approve the revisions to Board Policy Section 4 Personnel Classified Section Policy 4937.00 Drug-Free Workplace Basic Policy.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, moving on to item B, use of football safety equipment. This is something we do every year.
So this is just the Idaho High School Activities Association. Rule 1726 requires that no school-owned uniforms or protective equipment may be used without written permission from the Board of Trustees and from the IHSAA. This is during the summer season. Also, the request from the trustees to IHSAA shall include a statement of recognition that the IHSAA-sponsored catastrophic insurance provides no coverage for the activity, and any liabilities rest solely with the school, camp, or clinic. We annually allow football and other high school athletic programs that it's kind of out of season, out of the IHSAA's jurisdiction, and they are waiving off all of their liability. Specifically on this like catastrophic insurance, which is primarily covered in the case of paralysis or something like that is when catastrophic insurance would kick in. It's pretty standard practice for schools and you guys have been doing it for a long time.
But does our insurance that we carry offer anything?
Our insurance would still cover school
okay.
operations.
So it's not like we're suddenly exposed.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yes.
I move that the Board of Trustees of Moscow School District Number 281 hereby approves the use of MSD football equipment for a summer football camp yet to be determined, and further resolves that the Board of Trustees acknowledges that the IHSAA-sponsored catastrophic insurance provides no coverage for the activity, and any liabilities rest solely with the school, camp, or clinic. Second.
Been moved and seconded, further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to the approval of the consent agenda.
I move that the Board of Trustees of Moscow School District Number 281 hereby approves all items listed under the consent agenda as presented. Second.
Been moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we'll move on to our second public comment period of the evening. Is there any public comment?
You made it the whole way.
Oh, yeah. I know, you guys like to party late.
Yeah.
I'm here with my wife.
If you go up to the thing and state your name and you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, my name is Luke Ivers. I'm here with my wife, Tara Ivers. Our daughter goes to Lena Whitmore, and she just came home telling us some pretty disturbing information regarding a student threatening to kill his classmates. I won't disclose names, I don't think that's important. What matters is what...
By the way, they recently lost a student in their classroom. They're in kindergarten. This is someone that was very close to all of them, even myself, because I volunteered in this classroom regularly. So this comment being made in such a close proximity of when that had occurred was really hurtful to hear.
Yeah, she's pretty traumatized by the death thing. And I just want to know what do you guys do in terms of policy?
Zero tolerance. I think that's the thing that really has concerned me as a parent, is that I even had called around and asked now family friend who's at Moscow Charter and saying, what's sort of your guys' policy? But it sounds like they fall under sort of the same umbrella, and there is no zero tolerance policy of this sort of behavior. And I've also seen this sort of violent behavior and have heard also not only the violent behavior of trying to get into the classroom and clawing and scratching and screaming in the hallways of trying to get back into the classroom, and the teacher not really being able to do anything. Not to mention to try to manage 20-something kids, and one student has, an accident, another one has, a bag that needs to be changed. And I just, I even myself had taught abroad for a couple of years in elementary school, and how I was treated was almost synonymous with a doctor here. It's really sad, and why myself and a lot of my friends who taught abroad as well have decided to not continue teaching
in this country because of the treatment, the ill treatment, and that teachers just really don't have any sort of say or any kind of ability to speak up of these grievances that are happening and that are occurring to them. And so for me, it's like, I could maybe move her somewhere else, it's like.
Yeah,
but
we love Lena Whitmore. We love the location. I ride her, take her on my bike every day, just a couple blocks down. Teacher's amazing. Her peers are amazing. It's just one bad apple kind of making it really rough for a lot of parents and obviously the kids. We just want to know, like, is she gonna go through the next through 12th grade with this kid, or what's gonna happen?
Or is this person or other children that are having these sort of behavioral issues, right?
Because I would think you would be expelled immediately, and that's just crazy specific kids.
Yeah, so maybe this is something Sean could address with you directly, because we don't want to record anything that starts to.
Yeah, absolutely. It puts the board in an awkward position to respond, but I have met with the Ivers.
Oh, okay.
And a larger group of parents. But I think we'll continue to work on the concerns that they've expressed.
Okay, we just didn't want it to fizzle out over the summer and sort of nip in the bud, but I guess we just want to make sure we're doing our part, and that's why we're here today. Whether anything will be done, we'll leave that up to you. And we certainly hope so, but also not gonna leave my daughter in a dangerous situation, so I'm sure you guys understand.
And I just to be clear, all of our policy is online, and so if you want to know specific policy, which we have the power to act on as school board members and not administrators, we're very mindful to not try to intercede in the workings of school professionals. But we do have all of our policy is very transparent.
And our policy is beholden to federal law, as well as state law. So even if there's something we wanted to do, we have to first follow US law.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you for
much for
enduring
coming
this
in.
whole meeting.
Yes, and talking to us.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys for enduring this.
Yes.
It's not easy.
Join us next month.
right, exactly, yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. All right, so we move on to an executive session. And so we have we need to.
You guys are.
Yeah, you're good.
You can go too.
I know it's not an agenda item, but since they're here, I mean, is there any other questions for them after kind of rolling everything around in facilities? I appreciate you guys sticking out to
Did you stay here, we guys have to do things like that?
Otherwise, we'll excuse you guys and we'll go into executive
Yeah,
session.
no, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
I'm excited about the project,
Yeah.
assuming that we go in that, if we go in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And for all your work on this. All right, so we'll have a motion and roll call vote for executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061 to consider labor contract matters authorized under section 74-206A, 1A and B Idaho Code.
But you didn't make the motion.
I didn't make the motion, I'm just
So
reading
I
the
will make the
statement.
motion.
I think you read the wrong one.
Did I? That's the one I have.
No, well,
I thought I changed it. This one's for J.
For J.
Just J.
Okay.
Well, that's-
There's the
changed
motion
above,
is
but not
correct, but
below.
the upper
I'm
is
sorry.
not. That's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, but he'll do it on the motion.
All right, now it's a little harder. All right, I move that the Board of Trustees of Moscow School District Number 281 retire into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061J to consider labor contract matters authorized under Section 74-2061A and B of Idaho Code.
Second.
Hey, it's been moved and seconded, so can we do a roll call vote, please?
Sorry, I'm still typing. Trustee Fonz?
Yes.
Trustee Kirsten?
Yes.
Trustee Fazio?
yes.
Trustee Frenzel?
Yes.
All right, so we're in executive session.
And don't.
Request a bathroom break?
Yes, we do.
And you guys can go.
And I
Yeah,
Thank you.
we're-
turn the.
And thank you both.
I forgot. But I forgot to make copies of your document, but I'll go make
Um,
just so I can
It's a
talk.
good thing I.
You want me to go grab? I have some probably.
Do you have
Are
some
we
copies?
I brought mine, so.
Right, so don't talk